Alright, have you ever had that one friend that like laughs at all your jokes? Like, can't possibly think that you are that funny, right? And sometimes you catch them doing that whole like hesitated laughter thing. You know what I'm talking about? Like when you say a joke and they kind of just wait until everybody else starts laughing and then they slowly but casually kind of just blend into the mix. You know what they say? He who laughs last didn't get the joke. We've all known this person, but we've also all been this person, right? We've missed the meaning. And maybe that's not all our fault. Sometimes we can't really follow what is happening in the conversation, or maybe we're just not engaged enough. So me and Rachel are here to help you make the most of your message and teach you how to be effective when it comes to getting your meaning across. I'll be going over how to hook your audience and structure your presentation in an engaging way, and then Rachel is going to go over the steps to improve recall, compare your presentations to other options, and also consider the meaning. So first off, you want to start your presentation in a compelling way. So you can either start with an attention grabber or even a favorable impression. For instance, like today I told you the story about your friend that always laughs last. So you paid more attention because you could really relate to that story, to my topic. And then during your presentation, you want to highlight your key points. A speaker wants to introduce a little drama to captivate their audience. It is important for them because if you have poor drama when you're talking about your speech, it can look like some bad summer camp routine. But when it is done well, you can have these star moments, something they'll always remember. Bill Gates used a well-publicized star moment when he was talking about malaria. He released mosquitoes into an auditorium. He made this moment difficult to resist. What he did was relevant to what his message was and linked up correctly with what he was talking about. He tapped into the audience's emotions and then surprised them. And then he involved the audience. His actions featured movements, images, as well as sensory. And then he induced tension with the people by telling them that the mosquitoes were harmless. This moment was relevant, emotional, surprising, inclusive, sensory, and intention-inducing. It made every possible distraction easy to resist. Lastly, you want to end your presentation with emphasis. You want to take this opportunity to just reinforce all your key points and to make sure that you're leaving your audience with something to remember. Saying things like, to wrap this up, will get the attention back onto you and will create a perfect signal for your audience to know that you're running out of time and you're summing things up. Now that you know how to hook your audience, I'm going to teach you how that you can hold that attention by structuring in an engaging way. There are two different types of approaches, direct and indirect. The direct method is more like a structural gift for your audience because it puts your conclusions at the forefront of your presentation when the intention is high, and then it reinforces them at the very end. The structure is easy to follow because the audience can already predict what you're going to say. And it's also a time saver because putting it at the forefront gives them the opportunity to make your points just a little bit quicker. As well as lastly, you emphasize your main points twice, which is always a good thing. So we recommend that you use this method whenever possible. And then as for indirect, you hold your conclusions until the very end. So this approach is more like a mystery story because it doesn't reveal anything until the last minute. This approach is a lot harder to follow and it is actually more time consuming. But you might be forced to use this approach when you're dealing with people who don't normally agree with what you're saying, or maybe when you're in a different culture. Saving your conclusions to the end might keep people from opposing you right away. It can soften their resistance to an unpopular idea, or even convince them that you're a fair person. Also, as for culturally, you might want to consider doing this because you don't want to come off as too pushy. So we think that you should use this in these instances, as well as if your boss instructs you to do so. So then organize your content into clearly structured sentences helps your audience tremendously. The most common ways to organize your structure is by topic, which is kind of like what we did here just by doing our key points. But much like this, there's a variety of different ways that you can do it. According to the book, you can do it by importance, by time, by process, by location, by contrast, or even by solution. The structure pattern is key to engaging your audience, but you can even help them even more by these three simple things. First, a preview always helps in aiding the structure that you've created for a talk. It acts as a roadmap and takes your audience just down the path that you're going, so they can see what you're delivering your information in more clearly. Secondly, it helps when you introduce new sections. When people learn that a new topic is about to begin, they suddenly become more attentive, and so changing topics just gives you the ability to reconnect your audience back to what you're talking about. Which leads us into our last point, which is chunking and attention. When you use chunking along with other attention-getting tools, attention isn't likely to take a nosedive, but instead looks more like a wavy line. Just as your audience is about to decline in attention, you can change your topic to a different chunk to get it right back up there again. Now that you know how to hook the attention and how to keep them engaged, I'm going to pass it on to Rachel, who's going to give you steps in improving recall and also for considering the meeting.
Alright, so some steps to improve recall. Here we have 5 steps that we can improve recall, and I'll go over each one of them. The first one is don't just force feed the information. This is important because when you're just force feeding information on your audience, they're not actually retaining it and they aren't able to remember. The next one is put details into context. So an example of this is kind of how we're doing now, where we have the bullet points up here, and then we take these details and we add context into it, and so that the audience can understand what the bullets are from the PowerPoint. The third one is show, don't tell. You can use visuals, charts, and diagrams for the visual learners to help them retain the information. Reinforce what needs to be remembered. Constantly repeating what is important in your presentation helps your audience focus on what you're repeating, and those points are important for the audience. I had a professor last semester that would, in his presentations, he would repeat what was important from the last class, and we would all memorize those notes that he gave us, and they were always on the test. So that is an example to reinforce what needs to be remembered. The last one is give people breaks. We've all been in a situation where the professor just gives us a lot of information and it's a lot to retain. So having some breaks in there helps retain what was just told to us. The next one is compare presentation to other options. Maybe a presentation is not the best way of communication. The first thing is that maybe you should arrange a private conversation. If your audience is small and it doesn't really need a big presentation, you can do this so you can stress maybe some confidential things or just some important factors. The next one, set up a meeting. This is allow for group interaction with your audience, and so that kind of how we do in class sometimes, where we have little group projects. The third one is a high-tech alternative. In this day and age, there's other options for getting your message across. You can do it via Skype, or you can have a presentation online that your audience goes and views online. The last one is just writing down the message. This is helpful and useful because you can edit your words and then send it to your audience. There is a con to that because you're not sure if they actually received your message. And there are some pros and cons to presentation. There are 3 pros that I put on here. It meets your needs when you are wanting to inform or persuade. It can be supplemented with slides or handouts. You can hand out like a brochure before the presentation. It gets people out of the office and focus on your message. I know a lot of y'all work, and so when your boss says we're having a meeting in 10 minutes, you gather up your stuff and you go and listen to what they have to say. The cons, it fails to meet your needs. you're not able to work as a team to solve any problem. People miss the presentation. This happens a lot just with our people in class. When they miss presentations, they might ask you for the work they missed. Poor word choice hurts credibility. The next slide, consider the medium. You can distribute handouts or other materials, like I said earlier, and you can do this before, during, or after. Include some question and answer sessions. This is like how we do in class. It gets the audience involved in your presentation. Later in your communication efforts, an example of this is if you worked for a company and you had to tell your audience that they were moving headquarters, you wouldn't want to just have a big presentation in an auditorium and everyone go and tell them that they're moving their headquarters. You might want to set up smaller meetings and get them geared up to that final presentation. This helps because they're able to have a question and answer time and able to know what the final presentation is about. And with that being said, I will now read y'all a quiz.
Go ahead.
The first one is make the most of the blank. What do the letters in STAR stand for? One way to improve recall is to reinforce what needs to be blank. Give one other example of a structural pattern besides topic. Besides a blank is not the best way of